Hello and welcome to the first episode of 2017. This is Game Warp. I'm your host as always, Elwood Jones. And I'm joined of course by my co-host and partner in crime, Miss Kim Lowe.
Hello!
First off, Kim, did you have a good holidays?
The holidays were great. It was really busy, but also with a lot of nice relaxing moments, which was great to catch up, I mean, we took a little break on our podcast too, about a month. So it was nice to, catch up on a few things and organize a few things. And obviously we planned for a few things for Game Warp as well. So
This is the thing. I think when I was looking at everyone else doing their premiere episode of 2017, I think we're probably one of the last ones. So we took kind of a longer break than everyone else. But, we're back now. We're back ready to get back into the flow of things. And obviously to kick off the 2017 season, we're going to obviously be doing our first featured game for January, which was, of course, Cathy Rain. Now, for those unfamiliar with Cathy Rain, it came out around June last year, and it's a very old-school throwback to the LucasArts point-and-click adventures. This is developed by Clifftop Games, which is a Swedish development company, and it's actually a one-man company run by Joel Stafford Hasdo. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing any Swedish names there at all. But yeah, he basically wrote, he directed, he animated, he put this whole game together himself, and anyone who's obviously seen it will notice it's got that very familiar pixel style, which seems all too familiar now with retro games. And this is sort of a real throwback to those, as I said, those classic games such as Indiana Jones, Fate of Atlantis, Day of the Tentacle, Manic Mansion, perhaps to an extent, but perhaps not as ludicrous in parts as we'll probably obviously get into as we get into this review. But Kim, I mean, this is one that you discovered and brought to the table. I mean, what was your sort of thoughts on Cathy Rain?
Well, I think the first thing that really catches you about Cathy Rain is really its protagonist. Cathy Rain herself is a great character. It is a great character to start, just from the first moments that she steps in and right till the last moment. I think her character remains very strong and very catching. I'm not personally much of a point-and-click adventure person. I don't have the, I guess it's the patience, and sometimes I don't connect the dots well enough, and I don't connect, what items need to be used in the proper place. And I don't really mind the pixelated art. I feel like that's a very normal way of approaching a point-and-click. A lot of point-and-clicks are more pixelated than usual. But this is a very wordy game, and it's very story, it's very strong on its story. I really like games that have a heavy story plot to it.
Yeah. I mean, the story itself obviously sees Cathy Rain return into her small hometown for her grandfather's funeral, who's died under seemingly mysterious circumstances. And in turn, she's drawn into this sort of Twin Peaks-esque style mystery as she takes upon herself to solve the mystery of her grandfather's death. Now, the story itself, I don't know what you made of it, Kim. For myself, for the most part, it held my attention, but I felt that while Cathy Rain was certainly a strong character, and certainly her roommate as well was a strong character, that the game was constantly being hampered by these sort of weaker and more predictable characters. I mean, when it came to the characters, I mean, what was your sort of thoughts on characters really here?
I mean, obviously, it's a really mixed bag. And I really felt like maybe not the characters itself fell apart, but the story itself kind of lost a bit of its momentum near the end. I do appreciate what it's trying to do, but there are obvious questions that I hope to discuss near the end about just, I guess the ending feels a little ambiguous in a way, and you're not really sure about all these characters that pop up. And some of the characters feel like they're a little underused as well. I mean, yeah. you have some elaborate, you have some elaborate puzzles near the end, and in the front, it's more just using the right items in the right place, like a very normal point and click. I like the diversity of it, and I think that the characters also carry a lot of, I guess it's, how can you say it would be, the characters really they seem like they're there for a purpose in a way where maybe someone else could have done that also without having to create a completely new character. And I think a lot of it is to carry some sort of comedic, odd, quirky value to it to kind of reinforce that whole indie vibe that we get when, like, say we watch an indie film or something, you know?
I know what you mean. I felt that so many times for the characters that it was always a case of you going back and forth to the same characters, and they would always be in the same location. Like, the sheriff's always going to be at his desk. Yeah, your Gran doesn't move off the couch for 5 days, the whole 5 days that this game takes place. I mean, is she not worried about deep vein thrombosis or something? I mean, yes, I understand your husband's died, but, you know, get off the couch, do something. And it felt like if you needed to find a character, with perhaps the exception of the bum, who randomly keeps turning up throughout this adventure, you could pretty much guarantee you knew where any of these characters would be because they never really moved from any one location. And I felt that, to an extent, that many of these characters, they just weren't fleshed out at all. Yes, we have the gruff sheriff. We have the grandma who's maternal. We have the young sheriff, the young deputy, should I say, who obviously tries to pick Kathy up. The only character, other than Kathy herself, who's really well-rounded, she's really interesting to be around, and she's constantly coming out with witticisms and being just a complete badass. The only other character who sort of seemed to have any sort of development was her roommate. And again, she's really playing just the Dr. Watson to Kathy's Sherlock Holmes. She's just there to really provide the science, provide the knowledge parts. If you need, like, a special piece of equipment, then she'll be the one who supplies it. Like, there's a puzzle on the day 2 where you're having to hack into the school's admin system. So she sets you up with a hacker who can give you all these disks to allow you to get the admin codes and things. So, yeah, it was just kind of disappointing, the fact that while we have what could potentially be all these interesting characters, so many of them were just so painfully underdeveloped or just really predictable in where their story arcs were going to go. I think even the bum, even while it is amusing to have him do his, like, interpretation of things such as, like, Silence of the Lambs or The Usual Suspects as part of one of the puzzles, it kind of fell apart because his characters got kind of a bit grating after, like, the third day that you saw him, even though you do get to use the taser on him, which is kind of amusing as well.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. There's a lot of, I really agree with the underdeveloped, and I think that the main reason of this is the fact that by the end we realize that whoever, like, the developer wants this to be a series. They want to continue with this duo, and they built it up so that her roommate Eileen and her is going to be a team, kind of like what you mentioned, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Yeah.
Because it's such a strong thing right now. I mean, Sherlock Holmes is a never-dying character. Everybody wants to imitate Sherlock Holmes, especially with it, like, bursting back on all sorts of screens and movies and TV series and everything. And I like the concept of it being a mystery, and I like the concept of what they're trying to build here. But the fact is that if a game takes such a linear path and sets up a story which is just like, I guess what it is that I don't want to assume what the developer is making, but I'd like to say that because there will be a sequel, we will probably see maybe some of these characters that has re-entered into her life, like her grandma and all these people, maybe will make a bigger, like, will be a little bit more developed.
Yeah.
But to bank it on that might be a little bit assuming a little bit much, especially for an indie game, where the potential of your game lies on the game overall, the overall experience of it, being it trying to break into just making it very memorable. Obviously, I don't mind playing Kathy Rain again because it's kind of a fun way to watch. Like, we always have this discussion about how playing heroines in a certain way are very, very fun, especially because they're very rare. And she's kind of like this biker chick. She has all these snarky, witty remarks, and you get to choose all of these remarks that at times I actually found her remarks are really hard to choose as a reply because all of them seem so, I don't know, either funny or attitude or just all that sort of thing. And I mean, for sure she's the redeeming character here, but I don't know. I mean, I obviously think that like some of these characters are there for a certain reason. Like Grandma is obviously there as the information hub. You go to her and you ask her all these questions. She almost always has answers.
Yeah.
Because she knows, she knows the territory, she knows the place, and then you have these, and then like a lot of but then I feel like what the game kind of falls is that it's not as challenging as it could be, I guess. Where it kind of takes a flip of the normal indies where it feels like it should be, maybe the puzzles could be a little bit more challenging, but at the same time it's really just, you have to listen to the dialogue. If they're saying, oh, well, this is the next thing to investigate, then you follow the investigation to that next place, and then usually maybe a cutscene will happen, maybe something will happen, or it'll lead you to the next part. And I guess I don't mind linear storylines, but I also don't like the fact that I found it kind of got a little repetitive, especially because it always felt like you always got blocked by someone who wouldn't let you through, and then you had to find that one way to lure them away. And, it was always using the same sort of like tactic to do it. I feel like there could have been a little bit more creativity in certain parts.
Oh, definitely. And the game at times just feels very limited in the locations that you visit. You always seem to be going back and forth to the same locations. And while it certainly avoids that LucasArts pitfall of you get stuck, so you basically throw everything in your inventory against the wall to see what sticks. As you mentioned, Ray, the puzzles are very logical and very linear. There's always a reason to do things, such as there's an early puzzle where you have to use number codes in one of the books, going off a riddle that has been left by the grandfather. And again, it's very on the wall. It's not like you're having to do something stupid like put the pulley inside the rubber chicken or something like that. And depending on what game you're playing. So it was kind of refreshing not to have that. And there are obviously those moments of humor, but I just got so kind of bored, especially when we're like on day 3 and we're still going back and forth between the church and the police station and the lake, and you just don't seem to be going forward. And when we do finally get to go forward, we're basically faced with a bunch of cast-offs from Sons of Anarchy that we have to then deal with, and it just kind of became a little more grating. I just felt that it'd be nice to be going somewhere different, to feel that we're not just going around in a circle and just having different conversations with the same people, which is certainly one of my main gripes. And it just comes back to that fact that these characters are just so painfully underdeveloped in places that you just it struggles to hold your attention the way that if these characters have been more interesting and there have been one or two more random characters in there, it probably would have broken up the monotony some. But it's kind of goes back and forth between trying a serious tone and like having that Twin Peaks sort of aura to it, and at the same time trying to be funny and have this character who's witty and funny and comes out with these snarky responses. And thankfully none of them will result in your character being killed, because there's no time you think, oh, this is going to go really badly and this person's never going to want to speak to me. But normally most responses will lead to the same place regardless of which way you go. So
like I don't really mind the fact of going back and forth. I feel like that's my impression of a point and click adventure, is that the world usually doesn't get very big because it's to keep it kind of contained in a certain way so that the story doesn't drive too far away.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I don't really have a problem with that. I think that the concept of it is that they want to reinforce that Conwell Springs is a very small countryside, everybody knows everybody type of thing. And then in all this is really trying to bring out the mystery that we have to learn. Obviously, I think that the mystery is done well. Maybe the pacing of the story was a little bit too lengthy in that sense, where it had moments where it felt like it was a little bit too long for its own good. But I mean, even in the first part, we already start learning about this mysterious red man, and then you're like, this is where I want to talk about is we end and we don't really know who the red man is. He's kind of like an illusion of sorts, but he's kind of like a little trippy world. Like you don't, I really think that day 5 is the world it takes you in is great. It's fantastic. It's like a change of scenery. It does really flip the. It really aims to kind of amp it up. I just wish that there was a little bit more to it, because we never really, like the 5th day was when we really get inside, Kathy and the people she knows and these inner monsters that she has in a certain way, these things that she's trying to get over in her life. But my question is, while we're leading up to that, and there was a lot of things that didn't feel necessary, because there were parts in this where we could have understood Kathy a little bit more.
Yeah.
If these scenes were done a little bit better, and these, like her father and her, like just her parents in general, or that sort of thing, it might have actually brought out a different side of the story that might have been a little bit more effective than the one they chose to pick.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The Red Man, he frustrates me because he's introduced and you think, oh, it's going to be this really great character who's going to be kind of dark and kind of otherworldly. And then the first encounter you have with him in the woods, he's just this giggling loon, and it sort of like kills any mystery about this character whatsoever. And it just made me think, you were introduced so strong. You're there playing chess essentially against yourself. And then you just turn up and you're just like some weird, crazy person. And it's all like, well, there's no mystique to this character anymore. It just feels kind of flat again. And to that respect, while I was obviously drawn in by this, like, it's this game's version of like the Black Lodge from Twin Peaks, and by seeing that cutscene of him playing chess and them being all sort of mysterious and whatnot, and it just felt, I thought, oh, this game's going to go really somewhere interesting now. And then we just faced with another day of just pretty humdrum activity where they're trying to get into a hospital room by trying to con a nurse, and it just felt, oh, well, this just feels like what we were doing 2 days previously. We're like on day 3 and we're still not doing anything any different. So to that respect, it kind of made it difficult going once I sort of hit that day 3 mark and didn't realize that we're not really doing anything particularly different here. And I felt that, as you were saying to that extent, maybe the story's a little long. Maybe it needed to be hacked down by a day and just do it as a 4-day mystery. Mm-hmm. Especially the first 2 days work really well. Yeah. It's just when we get on stage 3 and 3 onwards that everything suddenly starts falling apart. So.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I feel that as we look at a lot of these indie games, there is this fault of being a little bit too repetitive. And I think it has to be with the fact that they never have, like, it's hard to have a big team when you're an indie studio, and it limits the amount of creativity that can come out of it and the amount of discussion that you can have. And that's okay. I mean, is this a debut game from Clifftop?
Yes, this is a debut from Clifftop.
Yeah, so I mean, seeing as it is a debut, I would say that there is a lot of room for improvement, and I can see that there is a lot of potential for this being really good, especially playing on Kathy's character, building on Eileen, and if there is even a sequel that comes out for it, that it seems like a really good platform that they've built. But of course, they could have taken many other decisions that could have been a little bit better. But I mean, like, in general, I think, to be honest, there are some really good moments in Kathy Rain, and I mean, one of my favorite moments is the transition from one scene to the next. And you just jump into a scene where she's riding on with this fantastic score in the background of her just on her Catmobile, and she calls her motorcycle, and it is fantastic to watch that scene. And actually, I don't know if you knew about it, but there are some quirky achievements that you can get, like Steam achievements for doing things like that. Like staying on that scene until the music loops, and that's the achievement. I think it's like enjoying the scenery or something like that.
Okay, I know that. Yeah, if you try to set the Bibles on fire, it gives you the heretic achievement. Yeah. And if you try to steal your grandma's wheelchair, it gives you the going for a spin achievement as well. So. Yeah, there's some fun little bits there, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like, what would be a moment that you really enjoyed in Kathy Rain?
Oh, I think one of the things I really enjoyed was when one of the puzzles, you have to use your voice recorder to create a fake answer machine message. And I think this is the only time you're going to see a computer scanner being able to somehow scan audio recordings as well, which was a complete fluke. I even discovered that because I just was at one of those points where you're throwing everything against the wall. And I thought, oh, let's just try a cassette recorder in scanner, and it mysteriously worked. And the puzzle basically allows you to make a voicemail message using bits of the recording, so it's kind of fun. And just on the actual the actual recorder, there's actually, you can find hidden messages on there from the developer where it like leaves you like these sort of white noise sort of ghost messages on there. Where like pops it with kill Kathy Rain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which he just dismisses, but it kind of freaked me out as to what was going on with that. But sadly, that wasn't anything major. But it's a fun little Easter egg on there that you can find. So, but what was your favorite bits? Was it
the Catmobile was definitely one of my favorites, and honestly, I really like the fact that Kathy Rain is set in like the mid '90s, and you really have a good feel about, like, while it doesn't really make much of a difference to the story itself, I like the fact that they can bring back, the whole audio tape thing and playing with an audio recorder and just a tape recorder and being able to rewind and fast forward and really like use that to be like your clues and whatnot. And I really thought that was a really fun bit to use.
Yeah, certainly when you mentioned like the '90s sort of setting for the game, I mean it's none the clearer than when you look at Kathy's dorm room and you look at the posters on the wall, and it's kind of fun to try and spot them because obviously you got Titanic there, you got Interview with the Vampire, you got Pulp Fiction, and then you got Death Proof, which isn't a '90s movie at all. That's a 2000 movie, so kind of a cock up there, guys. But yeah, it's fun to have those '90s references. I think more things should be set in the '90s, but I think that's just old man me talking, because obviously the '90s were kind of my generation that I came up through, being born in '83. So I kind of get nostalgic for those like '90s aesthetics of things, because it's just got a really nice look and feel to it. So it's nice to see games tapping into the '90s aesthetic rather than just like going and doing something like really cliche, doing like a period sort of piece like 18th century or the traditional sort of ghost story sort of setting. So yeah, I more than happily would love to see more games 90s set, definitely.
So now I ask the question is, if like, seeing as this is set up that there might be a sequel, there might be a sequel, will you be inclined to play it?
I'm tempted. This wasn't the best experience for myself. I went into it all positive and hopeful, and I think this was perhaps another Song of the Deep moment where you start off positive and it slowly grinds you down from being this positive experience into kind of a meh experience. The character Kathy, though, she's so intriguing. I really enjoy being around this character. I'm just frustrated with the fact she's not given anything more interesting to do, or that she's not given more interesting people to interact with. I mean, this is the sort of character that wouldn't look out of place if she showed up in Life is Strange. I would kind of want to see her turn up in that world randomly and see how she would like interact with like someone like Max, for example. But yeah, I would definitely like to see another game, just if only just to see where the Kathy Rain character herself goes. Perhaps giving her more big city sort of noir sort of story to go with, rather than sort of like the small town America sort of story that we obviously had with this one, which is obviously, as we said already several times in this podcast, it's really trying to tap into that sort of Twin Peaks vibe. And while it works for the most part, it never fully feels that it's working, just thanks to these sort of repetitive character interactions you're having.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely am up for a sequel. I like the fact that, like you said, Kathy is definitely someone who's very fun to play. Yeah. She's unique in so many ways, and just the way she is, and just just the way she'll handle a situation, like no nonsense.
Yeah.
It's incredibly appealing to just play. However, if there was anything else this could develop, I mean, this is a really good starting point. I think that Clifftop Games took a nice point in where they made some, clunky decisions in the plot and the pacing, obviously, according, like, to me at least.
Yeah.
That really, the midpoint was kind of like a downer, and I feel that a lot of games have that issue. But I mean, like, I definitely would be into it, just for the fact that even the next game, if it was set in university, just to see more of, like, where she studies, what she studies, and I think we know what she studies. She studies journalism, but, like, just to see, like the environment, because that would be a place that we have now been kind of exposed to, just a few characters, and it'd be a nice way to kind of segue into there and create somewhat of a mystery, which would be more of their grounds. It'll be their turf. They'll kind of have a little bit more place to play around, and hopefully build on those two characters that we had a chance to meet and talk to at the same time.
Oh, definitely. I think it's very underused in that respect. The fact that we're on this campus and they could obviously do so much more with it, but they don't actually do enough with it. What we see of the campus is just the actual dorm room there, so it would be kind of nice to see something more with that, definitely. So I mean, in terms of the voice cast, obviously Kathy's really good. Her roommate's really good when it comes to the voice cast. Everyone else kind of felt a little more bargain basement on this one. It wasn't the best. The Gran in particular is kind of predictable, much like the sheriff. And whoever's playing the bum was just really going for it, but it started off fun and just kind of got grating towards the end there as well. So
yeah, somehow the bum sounded really familiar. On top of that, he sounded like a very generic person for a person that looks like the character they had designed. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. I can't place like a person, like a voice that goes with that. But I'm sure it's not whoever we're thinking, but it just sounds alike. But yeah, I mean, the voice casting was not bad, especially for an indie performance. I've definitely heard worse. And but I mean, like, for sure, Kathy and Eileen are the standout here. I don't really mind Grandma that much, just because Grandma kind of doesn't have such a significant role. She's really there, like I said, as an information hub. So she has her, like, old grandma voice that, works for what her purpose seems to be for.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's she's very sort of quaint, really, and oh my god, there's certain times it's sort of like, why are we asking her this? And what possibly can she be bringing to this that is going to help with this investigation in any shape or form? And it, yeah. There's times I did wonder why we were bothering her with these things, because a lot of the time she didn't know.
Well, she always has some sort of information. I mean, if anything, it would be nice to see. I think, if anything, if we think about the characters now, I actually see a lot of these little characters that showed up with little cameos that could be really nice segues for a sequel. And I don't know, maybe it's partially a dump of having these people that appeared in their lives and people that she didn't really know, just have these people there, and it would open up a lot of doors as to, if they had a sequel, where the story could go.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's definitely potential there for where it could go. I think if they do a sequel, they really need to work on the characterization, though, because it's what really lacks it. Yes, the story might be interesting, but the characters we have to interact with, it's where it certainly falls apart. In terms of these characters just lose their sort of appeal towards the end, and many just become grating, or we just don't form the sort of relationships with them that we'd expect to be having. So the voice cast didn't particularly bother me as such. I mean, the key characters were fine. Kathy in particular is really great and sounds great, and certainly a roommate as well. And it really helped with that sort of back and forth interaction that those two characters have, especially. So, right. So scores. I mean, what would you rate this one then, Kim?
3 out of 5.
Yeah, it's about the same as I was going. I thought you were going to rate this one higher, but yeah, we seem to agree on this one. It is a solid 3 out of 5 for this one. Yes, the story's interesting. It's an enjoyable throwback to, as we said, the LucasArts sort of point-and-click adventures of days of old. But it's lacking something. There's something definitely lacking with this one, which obviously stopped me from liking it further. And certainly certain characters in particular could be pinpointed for that. But as a throwback, it's fun. Though certainly the price point is low enough to justify giving it a go. But I mean, for yourself, Kim, what was sort of not sort of sticking with yourself really that made you want to rate it a 3?
Well, it's more the fact I always rate games and the fact of how much I want to go back and play it.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, like day 1 and 2, I played them really fast, almost within 24 hours or so, like within 2-3 days. Within 2 days pretty much. I played those, you know. By the time I got the third day, I felt like it really burnt me out. I felt like I was getting a little like fed up, and I felt like things weren't going progressing as fast as I like it to be. And I feel that that's the problem, is that I think what is a downfall is the pacing. I don't even really mind the characters not being fleshed out. I felt like it was kind of like a small town thing. You couldn't meet everybody. Yeah. She was still really new, so people weren't really willing to give her all this information either. And I mean, I think it's smart, the fact that, you know, you had parts where, you know, you offered one of the characters cigarettes and had a smoke with her, and then you were able to befriend that person, you know, using, you know, like what she likes to befriend other people. It's a very clever way to do it. And there are many clever things like that, many clever puzzles. I really like Day 5. I really like the way it took it. But the fact was that the mystery was paced in a way where it ended in a really ambiguous way. And it felt like if we were going to do a sequel, actually the Red Man might come back to haunt us, you know? And I really don't want that to happen anymore. I'm done. I'm done with the Red Man. I don't know what his deal is. I ended this thing in confusion as to whether he's the devil or just some illusion or some crazy person. You know, I don't know what his deal is, you know, and that kind of frustrates me, because I'd like to see a game that I like to see games just as much and movies in the same way who are self-contained. Yeah. You know, when you're a game and you don't want the next person to be playing this to have played the first game in order to play the second game. That's a horrible strategy. I always think it's horrible. Okay. And to me, I think that's why I feel so strongly. Those are like 2 really big points in the pacing and just the direction it took that kind of deducted those points for me.
Yeah, that's fine. So, yeah, I mean, Cafe Rain is obviously available now via Steam. And for myself and Kim, it's been a solid 3 out of 5 game to kick off this new season of Game Warp. So this wraps up this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear your feedback and any recommendations. Head over to our home base, thatmomentin.com, to read more gaming reviews. To get gaming news and release updates every single day, follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game Warp Podcast. Hang out with us on our new Twitch channel when we stream at Game Warp Podcast. Finally, to catch us on the go, you can find us on iTunes and Podomatic. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.